Okay, we are back for very special episodes, joined by two American Olympians here who also happen to be world-class trail runners. First, joining us from Courchevel over there in Europe, though, of course, hailing from Crested Butte, Cam from CB, Cam Smith. Good to see you, buddy.
Hey, Debo. I'm super excited to do this.
Yeah. Also joining us from home at Jackson Hole before, I'm sure traveling over to Europe pretty soon, Anna Gibson. Anna, good to see you too.
Yeah, great to see you too.
So, of course, we're here to talk all things SkiMo. You guys are, household names in the trail running world. And we also have a lot to share with the audience about a different sport, and especially around this amazing accomplishment that you guys shared together recently. And, of course, look ahead towards the Olympic Games coming up here very, very soon. I'm sure you guys are in the thick of training and preparation. Maybe let's start with the moment at the finish line of Solitude. Of course, I've seen a bunch of the clips and photos, and you can just see the palpable joy on both of your faces. Maybe Cam, you can get us started. Just take us into that moment, because I think Anna was waiting for you at the bottom, given the alternating format of the race itself. So bring us into the embrace at the finish line and understanding what this meant for you.
Totally. So I think going backwards a little bit, like we knew that our whole Olympic fate as a team was coming down to this 1 30-minute race, and we'd been preparing for that all spring, summer, and fall. So it was like the culmination of this huge buildup, and not just Anna and I. Like there was the whole team racing to earn this quota spot all of the previous season, our coaches, people supporting us all individually, the federation and all that. It was like this huge buildup to this one race. And I think like to describe the moment at the finish line, you kind of have to think about what it was like in the days before. It's like there was all this pressure on us, right? Of like, you race well and you go to the Olympics, or you don't and you don't. And so many people that had a hand in supporting us, and so many people that worked so hard to put this event on and build our team up from the ground up. And again, like it wasn't just Anna and I that earned the spot. Like we just kind of got the team across the finish line. Like it was the whole previous season. So like when you think about all those touch points and like everything that was on the line, like there was a lot of objective pressure, right? But Anna and I in the days before just kept talking about like, yeah, there's a lot to this, but like if we just go race our race and like execute well and push ourselves to the limit and just have a solid day, like everyone will be proud of the contributions they made regardless. And so that was kind of our focus going in. And so kind of like getting to the finish line, I think if I had realized that we were going to the Olympics, I probably would have like cried right away. I did like shortly after. And if I realized we had like won a World Cup, I probably would have been like more pumped up and screaming about it. But like I didn't. I was just like trying to get to Anna and then like look out at like all the people that were there to watch. And I think that's because I was just like celebrating that we had done the race we were looking for. And I didn't like realize the like Olympics or winning the World Cup until afterwards. So like that was, yeah, I guess kind of if you want like what was in my mind like during that video clip is just like, oh, like we did the job, and just kind of like stoke about that. And then the bits of realization have come in the weeks and months since, for sure.
All right, Anna, your turn. And I think what's interesting here also, I'm pretty sure that was your first and maybe only World Cup to this point of your young ski mountaineering career, and you won the freaking thing. And of course, that's a very rare thing to be able to do. So maybe a beginner's luck, or just an example of latent talent that you've been sitting on your entire life. But share with us what it meant to you to, do this race with Cam and earn this Olympic bid.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny to hear Cam talk about his experience because, I was the one who was over there, like already in tears minutes before the race ended, like, with our coaches and with the other athletes who have helped contribute to this result that we had. And everyone was already in tears, like before it even ended, knowing that like this feeling was coming, that like we were almost across the finish line. And as long as nothing went wrong, we were making it to the Olympics, and we were about to win the first World Cup title in this event that the US has ever won. And not only that, but by a very large, like very commanding margin. And so it was just this like incredibly surreal moment. And especially for me, like there are other coaches and other like teams running around, and they're all just like looking at me like I have 5 heads. They're like, what on earth is going on? What just happened? And like feeling people respond to that in the moment. knowing that it was like my first World Cup race and like truly my first like actual legit SkiMo race was really, really wild. And I mean,
That's insane. You won a World Cup and you got on the Olympic team in your first real SkiMo race.
I mean, there's a lot more story there that I'm sure we'll get into. Like, yes. I really have been training for this sport my entire life. And in some ways, this feels like a return to the original ideas that I had in my head as a kid about what kind of athlete I wanted to be. Like, I grew up in a ski town. I grew up ski racing. I wanted to go to the Olympics for alpine skiing before I wanted to do anything else. And so I've been doing this sport effectively like before I was running. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's in some ways like brand new, but in others, like it's just in my blood.
Yeah, and we will get into all that stuff. But I would also love to hear from both of you your personal relationships with the Olympic Games over time, because I'm sure you've both been dreaming of this, though maybe in different sports. Anna, we can start with you. How do you feel about the Olympics and your potential to compete there, whether it's summer or winter?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of reflecting on this recently. I think this is probably the fourth iteration of the Olympics that I, have at one point envisioned myself being a part of. I think when I was super young, I was a downhill ski racer and I was obsessed with that. And so I remember like literally drawing pictures of myself when I was 8 years old at the Olympics for alpine skiing. Then fast forward, like maybe when I'm like, 15, I think there was a brief period of time where I thought maybe I would be a Nordic skier. Because I was taking that pretty seriously in high school. Then it became track. The 1500 was really like where a lot of my energy was going. And like now we're at SkiMo. And so it's been like this kind of journey of jumping from one thing to the next. And I've never had this idea in my head that like I need to be an Olympian in my career. But I just like have been on multiple tracks where I saw that as a possible outcome, like something that could maybe happen. And I had no idea that SkiMo was going to be the one, but I'm really excited for that it is.
And maybe trail running 2032. We'll get to that later. Cam, same question to you. I know you have a Nordic background. Was it always a dream for you to be an American Olympian, maybe first in Nordic before ski mountaineering?
Yeah, I mean, I had like similarly passionate dreams, just not maybe as concrete of a path as Anna had, because she was sort of competitive in 3 different sports and then in SkiMo. And then like really for me, it was more just like being obsessed with the Olympics as a sports fan from a young age and thinking it was so cool to see like the colors of the different nations all coming together and like, oh, what's this sport? What's that sport? And I've just kind of always been obsessed with it as a fan. And running was really my sport in high school and was never fast enough for it to really be a conversation. I actually learned to Nordic ski in college. So like I was trying to not finish last at races. So that wasn't really a dream either. It was more just like, oh, I love the Olympics as a sports fan. And then here's the sport that I'm doing currently. So like, Nordic was never a thing. But like, of course, like the thought crossed my mind as like an aspiring high school runner. But it was never going to happen. And then SkiMo is just sort of the second chance in a way, which was really cool. Cause like I sort of came of age doing this sport and, it's just like really cool to have that opportunity in life. And, we made the most of it. So it's the best thing ever.
Yeah. And you're like the guy and have been now for a long time, even though you're still very young. And I want to come back and talk about some of the pioneering work you've been involved in the sport generally. But first, let's go back to that race in Solitude. It's the Mixed Relay event, we should say. And I'm cognizant, of course, that we're speaking to a trail running audience here, and we should explain the format, both for the race in Solitude and for the Olympic Games. Of course, most people who are going to be listening are not as familiar with like team format racing. So maybe, Cam, you could just give a quick explainer about what the Mixed Relay looks like practically.
Yeah. So briefly, it's a male and a female racing together. They each race 2 laps of the same circuit. So Anna goes first. She does the whole circuit. She tags off to me. I do a circuit. I tag off to her. She does her second and final lap. Tags off to me. I do my second and final lap. And it's just a mass start race for Anna at least. And then by the time she's tagged off to me, we're spread out more and then just first across the line. So what that circuit looks like is 2 major climbs, 2 major descents. And by major, they're like 200 feet. So like much shorter than what a lot of the athletes are used to from other disciplines. So like 2.5 minute climb, ski down through some GS gates, put your skins back on, like you're constantly transitioning your gear between different modes of travel. You do the second climb, which includes a boot pack section, which means you put your skis on your back and you run. Keep transitioning, reach the top, transition again, ski down this GS descent. And then there is a moment where you go back into uphill mode to go tag off to your teammate just to add some drama and one more transition. So it usually takes like 7 to 8 minutes per lap and has 7 transitions per lap. So we're just constantly manipulating our gear between uphill mode, downhill mode, boot packs, and yeah, just repeating that course. So it's like fast, furious, but it really combines a lot of elements of the sport. Like it's like who can climb, who can descend, and then these transitions just like totally add a unique element. So it's really dynamic racing because it can totally get turned on its head really quickly. So I think people are going to like watching it.
Awesome. All right. So I want to hear how Anna has processed like the skill development part of this, but let's get to that here in a second. First, I think also it'd be good to do some context setting about what the stakes were at Solitude, because to me, I'm a little bit unclear about this. You had to perform well in order for North America in general, meaning both the US and Canada, to get spots in the Olympics. Can you just explain how that was working too and what you needed to accomplish in order to earn the Olympic bid? Maybe Anna, you could take this one.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. I mean, I think Cam should take this one. He knows way more about the ins and outs of all the ranking and point system and everything. It's honestly like pretty confusing.
See, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one who felt like a little bit unclear. Go ahead, Cam.
I'm going to tag it over to Cam because he knows more of the backstory.
Yeah, it's kind of bonkers. So essentially there's 12 teams that were going to be in the Olympics for the relay and then a few other individual sprint spots as well. So when you're a new sport in the Olympics, you're kind of fighting for room at the table, like small athlete quotas, small amounts of medals you can give out. So like races that you can have or events that you can have. So with this being the first year SkiMo's in the Olympics, it's kind of small, right? So it's just these 12 relay teams and then 6 more sprinters, which makes 18 men, 18 women total. And so how we decide those 12 is Italy gets one automatically because they're the host nation, where they would have earned one regardless. And then 2 more countries, France and Spain, earned a spot by being the top 2 teams at the 2025 World Championships. So now we're down to 9 remaining. And then there needs to be a team from every continent that has a SkiMo federation. So there's the Americas are lumped together, Europe, Asia, and Oceania. So there has to be a team from each of those regions. So then there's China from Asia, who would have earned a spot regardless. There's the US and Canada kind of fighting for that North American spot. And then Australia is the only federation in Oceania. So that gets all the continental spots. And then the remaining, then 6 places are just the next 6 highest in the rankings overall. So then it, just rolls down the list. So basically we were 13th. Canada was 12th after last season. And so we were like right on the bubble of like whichever team was ahead of the other was going to go to the Olympics and the other was not regardless. And so like we were separated by 1 point. The difference between places is more than 1 point until you get way down the list. So it was literally just whichever team beat the other at Solitude was going to be the North American team. If we had both done well enough, we would have both qualified overall, but we were essentially just like right on the bubble and fighting with Canada for that final spot.
So did Canada get an Olympic berth too? I thought they did.
They just missed that overall ranking because of how well they did at Solitude. So yeah, it's tough. With it being so small, there's a lot of really good athletes and a lot of really good teams that won't be part of it this year, and then hopefully it's bigger in the future. But it's tough.
Yeah, well, I do want to come around and talk about how this might develop in future Olympic Games. But Anna, you mentioned the significant margin of victory that you guys had at Solitude too. Maybe you could contextualize that for the audience, because as I looked at the results again, just in getting ready for the conversation, it seems like you beat like some really legit global teams, and it was a World Cup, meaning by definition it was very international. Share your experience from your first World Cup event, and if you can add some context about the margin of victory and what that meant for you guys as a team. I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be noted that margin was begun by Cam in his first leg. So the gun goes off and I'm headed out first, and it's a full mass start. And we were actually behind Canada when I tagged Cam. Like we were very much in the mix. I think we were like 4th or 5th. And I had, done everything that I could, but it was like hectic and there was a lot going on. And, at that point it was like, wow, anything could happen. Like we're really in here. We're really going to have to race for this. And then Cam has this incredible transition that I actually wasn't watching, with my own eyes, because I was like, back in our like team area, putting down some calories and like trying to stay warm between my legs. But he went into the transition box in 4th and then came out in 1st. And then from that point forward, the race just changed. And he not only like, passed people in the transition zone, but opened up this massive margin. And so then I get tagged and I'm like way out front in my first ever SkiMo race. Like, I don't even know how to pace this thing. And I'm terrified that like, I'm just going to be like, I don't know, getting distracted, or that I'm like going a little bit too slow. And maybe the other people around me would have been helpful in order to like know exactly how much effort I'm putting out. And I really had to like zoom out of my experience and just like, trust all the work that I have put in, and trust like how my body feels, and that I know where that's linked with my effort. And yeah, then just like watching that gap continue to grow throughout Cam's second leg, and knowing that like we had just done this by a massive margin was like something that never even crossed my mind going into the race. Like I didn't think we could win. I didn't think about how much we could win by. It kind of just like happened. And so it wasn't until like after the race, in like the hours that came, and then like the next day while we were still at Solitude, like racing some more in the individual sprint, that like I realized how massive that was, and that margin, we did beat like the team from Italy, which is a very competitive team. They were 5th at the World Championships last year. And so like, while there weren't some of the top teams there that will be like medal contenders at the Olympics, like we had a performance that suddenly put us in the conversation for like being competitive at the Olympics for a medal. And that was something that like kind of dawned on us, I think, in like the days that came after the race, which is like kind of a cool realization. And I feel like we're both still like adjusting to that, like, the idea of like, not only do we make the Olympics, but we're actually going to be like competitive there if we have our best day.
Yes. All right. I can't wait to talk about that. And I love just the visual of Cam leaving, like smashing that first leg and then handing it back to Anna in the lead in your rookie race in a SkiMo World Cup with the Olympics on the line, and just knowing you have to redline it and then hand it back off to the much more experienced team member to bring you guys to glory. Cam, it looks like you want to jump in here.
Yeah, let me just correct that. That's not exactly how it happened. That like Anna buried everyone on her second lap, and it's just like harder to see because we had already had the gap at that point.
Yeah.
But like part of the like famous like recruitment conversation that we've retold a few times is like, was something that we haven't like said a lot, is literally what I said to Anna is like, I need like a killer out there. Like I need a competitor with this like killer instinct. And like she, during that first lap, when like all the pressure in the world is on her, like stayed totally calm and was so smooth and executed super well. And then when she got handed that lead, she just like put the nail in the coffin and like buried everyone on her second lap. So it was absolutely like a full team effort. So I want to make sure that's clear out there. She was executing so well. It was awesome.
See, this is why you guys are going to have success in Cortina. You know, it is a team effort. Racing is racing. Even if it was on his first race, it's that competitive instinct, the killer instinct is alive and well for Anna since a young age. Osprey just redesigned their iconic Duro and Dyna running vests, new for 2026, making them lighter, softer, and more stable than ever. Introducing the Duro and Dyna Pro Series from Osprey with new stretch mesh fabrics, improved fit systems, and repatterned flask pockets. These vests are built to move with you, not against you. The new Duro and Dyna Pro Series takes a great product and makes them even better, featuring integrated pole carry options, smart pocketing, and bounce-free hydration with dual half-liter soft flasks. You can stay fast, organized, and focused on the flow state of your trail run, always setting the standard in the category, of course. Osprey made a pack specifically for women. The Dyna Pro was developed with feedback from people like Rachel Drake and Leah Yingling, accommodating the needs of female trail runners based on their unique fit requirements, always pushing things forward and doing the right thing. Check out the latest Duro and Dyna Pro series from Osprey, available now, and run with confidence. Osprey, carry what moves you. Check it out, osprey.com. If you've spent enough time in endurance sport in recent years, you know the truth. Consistent training is, of course, the key, but fueling that consistent training can decide everything. Never Second was built around a simple idea. Performance nutrition should be precise, science-backed, and easy to execute on the fly when it matters most. No guesses, no gimmicks, just real science, real ingredients, and real results. Speaking of results, the proof has been on the race course, where Never Second athletes have, of course, been dominant. In fact, there were 4 Never Second athletes in the top 4 of Trail Runner of the Year: Jim Walmsley, Katie Scheid, Ruth Croft, and Abby Hall. Good enough for them, good enough for me as I attempt to make my own comeback for real this time. Wish me luck. A steady diet of C30 gels, bars, and drink mix, plus the P30 protein recovery mix. Your boy is back on the horse for real. Go grab some for yourself. Fuel like the great champions of our sport. Visit never2.com. Use code FREETRAIL25 for 25% off your first order. Never2.com. Use code FREETRAIL25. So I guess we should retell the recruitment conversation here that you just referenced, Cam. I think Anna and I talked about this at the World Championships too, but I think it'd be fun to just remind the audience why and how you were able to recruit Anna Gibson into the world of ski mountaineering.
So basically, I mean, like, from going into this like high stakes races, like, how can we just add more talented athletes to the team, like male, female, whatever, and just make the group better? And so like Anna had always been the name that I've like talked about with friends of like, who is that like next, like who has the potential in SkiMo. And like, it's not just like Anna's uphill running. It's also like, oh, we need someone that's like fast and explosive for these short races. Like, oh, like check that box, like 1500 Olympic trials and like 406 or whatever it is. And then like, okay, well, it's not just that. It's like, we need someone that can ski. Like, okay, obviously check that box. And then like, well, it'd be nice if like they had like a diverse ski background, like Nordic and Alpine. Like, okay, check that box. And she's been like technically like skinning and like using this gear longer than I have. It was just like for fun before elementary school. And then like all that coupled with like just the athlete and like competitor that Anna is, it's like, all right, like she's like definitely the prototype. Like, how do we like get her on the team? And so I was actually really afraid to talk to her about it, because I'm like, she's one of the best runners in the world. Like, she has like her whole life figured out, like doing this other sport. Like, how am I going to convince her to like do a different sport with like 6 months notice? And like, again, all the pressure in the world kind of in this one situation. And then my wife, Lynn, who's been like side by side with me this whole journey, is like, well, if you think there's a chance she'll like make the team better, why wouldn't you just talk to her? I'm like, yeah, you're right. And so I like go to Sunapee with the intention of bringing it up. And then like combination of rainy weather, wasn't really hanging out. I just like let the weekend go by, and I get home and my wife, Lynn's like, how'd the conversation go? I'm like, oh, like I just didn't get the chance. She's like, give me your phone. I'm texting her right now. I'm like, no. Like, I'll definitely talk to her at Broken Arrow. But I was like, sort of, again, like kind of nervous to bring it up, because I'm like, she like, again, has this whole plan. Like, she's one of the best runners in the world. And like, yeah, I was just kind of afraid to bring it up in that way. But my wife, Lynn, is kind of famously the one that kept pushing me about it. And then we, chat at Broken Arrow and TrailCon. And I just kind of explained to Anna, like, the exact situation we're in. Like, we're 1 30-minute race away from qualifying for the games, and the first time the sport's been in the Olympics, and like being part of this historic moment. And like, I think you'd be awesome at it. And like, she also had no guarantee that she'd be named to the team. She had no guarantee she would race at Solitude, no guarantee we would earn the spot, no guarantee that she would be the one selected. Like, it was all theoretical and all opportunity. And then Anna can speak to that of essentially she was game to try.
Anna, anything you want to add there?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I love this backstory because there's like so much going on with this conversation that I didn't even know. Like Cam just comes up to me at Broken Arrow and he's like, hey, so tell me if the answer is no, and I will never bother you about this again. And then he just launched into this like hard sell about how close we were as like a nation to making the Olympics. And like, at this point, I didn't even know anything about the race format, to be completely honest with you. Like, I had Cam explain to me how the relay worked, like he just did on this podcast, because I've been a fan of SkiMo and I've known what it was for a long time, but I didn't understand the Olympic disciplines. And so I was like truly starting from zero. And so all this information went into my head and I did not give him an answer right then and there. I was like, whoa, okay, I appreciate you asking, but I've got some stuff to think about with this. And I had to kind of like sit with it for maybe like a week or so. But it was really under my skin. And I was like asking people in my life that I trust for like their opinion and stuff. And everyone was like, wow, you seem really excited about this. Why would you say no? And that kind of just like, I don't know, I think pretty quickly I realized like this is something that I'm really curious about. And I've kind of like defined myself as an athlete by like following that curiosity and never shutting it down. Like I lean into those things. When I have an itch, I just have to go figure out what's going to happen. And so even knowing there were no guarantees, like the idea of just setting out on this path that had an unknown destination that potentially was going to be the Olympics was really exciting. And then I should also add, like, I think that the biggest thing that drew me into saying yes ultimately was like just seeing the level of excitement that Cam had about this, and like seeing that if I gave 6 months of my time and effort to this thing, like I could help dreams come true for people who have wanted this for far longer than I have. Not only Cam, but also like all of the team on the US team and also all of the staff. Like there are so many people who've wanted this for so long, and it really wasn't that big of an ask for me to just simply try. And so I decided that I was just going to go all in and do it.
It's so awesome that this all came together at Broken Arrow, which was like less than 6 months or so before the ultimate race at Solitude. And yeah, the fact that, maybe TrailCon was involved at the same time. Maybe we can take full credit for this Olympic birth. Anyway, just kidding. Coming back to
we talked on Tuesday, so you can call it TrailCon instead of Broken Arrow.
We'll take it. Coming back to the learning curve, obviously you again are no stranger to being a competitive racer, but SkiMo is much more complicated. Can you just share a little bit about how you took sort of the raw engine talent and maybe the unpolished skiing skills that you've had your whole life to transition into an Olympic worthy ski mountaineering specific athlete?
Yeah. I mean, that's just been the whole project I've been working on, for the last 6 months. Basically, I came into this knowing that I'm quite confident in my uphill ability, not just because of like where I ended the trail season with my fitness, but also because I like have been training uphill on skis for the last couple of years. Like I'm very, very comfortable skinning hard and boot packing hard. That's like been a large component of my training over the last couple of winters. And so I knew that wasn't something to be super worried about. I also am like a pretty avid downhill skier. Like I ski quite hard. I ski at the ski area a lot. And so like making turns, ripping downhill is like not a scary process for me. That's something that I spend a lot of time doing. And so like just looking at the SkiMo race, I realized that the hardest part for me was going to be these transitions. And the great part about transitions is that you don't have to have snow to do them. And so I started learning these skills, in my yard on a yoga mat or in my living room. And then also just going to camps with the US team and getting taught how to do these things by the other athletes and by our coaches. And I was just honestly practicing a lot. Like I didn't really change much about my training from, I guess I kind of like jumped into SkiMo like focused work starting when I got back from Sierras and all. So it was like early to mid-August. And from that point forward, it was basically just like adding a couple hours of transitions into my week of training. And I don't know, it's cool. It's
hours of transition practice a week. I love it.
I mean, 30 minutes to an hour a day, like feels actually like quite a lot. Like it feels like there's a period of time where like you're getting better as you start doing a session and then you start to get worse at a certain point. And so like, for me, that feels like it happens like somewhere around 45 minutes. Like if I'm just hammering them out back to back to back, you start to kind of decline. And so I was just adding, 30 to 45 minutes, maybe an hour, like at the end of the day, a couple times a week. And it's not super physically demanding. Like your heart rate definitely gets up, but it didn't feel like this was like extra training load that I was adding. It was just like a little bit more time and like a bit of dedication to like just the process of like feeling like a noob and being a beginner and just like trying to get this skill down. Like it almost equated to like learning how to kickflip on a skateboard. Like you just have to do it until you get it. And then there's like a constant process of refining and getting better.
Yeah. Like riding a bike, they say. Once it's like in your blood or fully downloaded, then you do it automatically, but it probably takes a few hours a week to really download it. Cam, it would be interesting to have you explain like the significance of those transitions as Anna describes it. It strikes me in the way you described the race in Solitude too. It makes it seem like the transitions are potentially the most significant moment of the race. What's the balance between athletic fitness, cardiovascular fitness, skiing ability, and then just those critical short moments of transition?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to overstate the transitions as a component of this race because you're doing it at the top of each climb, bottom of each climb, and then again with those like boot pack transitions in the middle. And so like the World Cup and being on this Olympic track, like all the athletes are close enough in fitness and close enough in skiing that it's really, really hard to get a few seconds of separation on these 200-foot climbs and descents, right? So like, then what does it come down to is the transitions in between, especially when you're doing so many of them. So like going from uphill mode to downhill mode is maybe like a 5 or 6 second transition at its fastest, but it like can take 10 or 15 if something goes wrong. And then you kind of extrapolate that out with all of them. Like just to give more numbers, like the skins on can take like 12 to 15 when it's really fast, but if it goes wrong, it can be like 30. And so again, like the race just totally gets turned on its head. If you make a mistake, of course, but even if someone's like consistently 1 or 2 seconds faster in these many transition zones spread throughout the course, like it's at the point where like you can't make that up with fitness and you can't make that up with skiing. And like it's decently like fine motor skill, like it is well coordinated movements, but like anyone can learn how to do it. But it's doing it on a slippery surface with wind and snow in your face, with wet, cold hands, and with like other people elbowing you and kicking your stuff around. And then also like with the pressure of these moments on you, which I think like, again, I just think is so cool about Anna's preparation up to this buildup. Like she learned how to do these things over the summer and then like executed with like the whole like team on her shoulders and like all this pressure on her in that moment. And it was like a stormy weekend, which like makes it harder too. Like it's just, yeah, cool. It's a fun part of the race. And like I think it's going to make it really exciting to watch.
It's funny too, having followed triathlon for a long time, I've known just how critical those moments of transition are, from the swim to the bike, from the bike to the run. And now even with trail running too, we've seen, and I've spoken to a bunch of the pro athletes about how they're rehearsing their aid station transitions. And especially in these long races now, a lot of the critical moments of separation happen just exiting aid stations. And then once you establish that gap, as you said, Cam, it's hard to make it back up. You guys both competed in both the uphill and the classic disciplines at the Trail Running World Championships this past September. Love to hear if you guys debriefed afterwards. If there's anything you take from competing at that stage, though, in a different sport that might help you at the Olympics in ski mountaineering. Anna, you were a medalist. You go first.
Yeah, I mean, wow. I feel like I've taken so much from that performance and that weekend. Like that was my first time competing at a true, like full international level competition. And to thrive there under pressure. I'm not going to say there was a ton of expectation on me. Like there was nobody who was like necessarily talking about me as a medal contender beforehand. But I think like even just the fact of this being your main sport and showing up at a world championship means that there's pressure on you. Knowing that I performed well there has given me a ton of confidence going into this SkiMo season, because all of this is built on, the foundation of fitness that I had from the trail season. And so knowing that like I'm coming into SkiMo with this base has been really positive. And then also knowing that like I can navigate just the pressure and the expectation of like that I have for myself in a really competitive environment has given me a lot of confidence for SkiMo as well. And I think, I don't know, it's just been a really crazy year because it feels like Cam and I have just aligned in a lot of ways. And that's sort of like part of what has made me just like feel the trust that I should lean into this decision to do SkiMo, knowing that like, you know, he's been doing both and it's working for him. And he's like very, very senior in this sport relative to me. Like he just knows how to do it. And I have like a built-in mentor in my relay partner, has been really, really incredible.
Cam, anything you take from Confranc to Cortina?
Yeah, it was like more so almost like Confranc to Solitude of like this qualifier event. Of like the whole reason I wanted to race at World Championships in trail running was to like prepare for Solitude. Of like working backwards, it was like, okay, our whole season comes down to this race at the very beginning of the winter, like beginning of December. And so like, how can I arrive there in the best form? And so like going back to like early last spring, last winter, a lot of SkiMo athletes like do other sports in the summer, or everyone does other sports in the summer. Like no one skis 12 months a year in this sport, but like not a lot of people compete because like, oh, the season's so long. And just like a long season. So a lot of the people we're competing against and a lot of our teammates like then choose to not race much over the summer to then arrive in the winter in the best form. But I wanted to take the opposite strategy, essentially, of like I wanted to go into the beginning of winter battle tested and mentally sharp and ready to go. So it's like, sweet, if I like am racing in a world championship at the end of September, then I just put the finishing touches on with some ski specific training in October, November, and I'll be like mentally ready. So it was almost more like I targeted that process of like the gauntlet of qualification of like trying to get top 4 at Sunapee and Broken Arrow against the athletes that we have in our country, and then taking that to worlds and like running against Kenyans and Ugandans and just like being in high pressure environments more often, I think is what kind of helped me prepare more so of just like, putting myself in uncomfortable situations as much as possible instead of just like dreaming about this day on the horizon and just kind of going monk mode training for that.
Awesome. So building off what Anna just said about you, Cam, you being kind of the built-in mentor and what I said earlier, you have basically been the guy. I remember before you and I even met, Mike Foote told me, hey, look out for this Cam Smith guy. He's like really the only guy who can push John Gaston, who at that point was sort of like the leading figure in men's ski mountaineering and who I think is still at the top of the game in the US. Share a little bit about, you're still super young, but you are kind of the grizzled veteran. I would love to hear you just share a little bit about how the sport has matured, especially here in North America in the decade or so that you've been competing.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of thoughts. First is it's funny to like be the experienced SkiMo racer, but like I look to Anna for a lot as like her being the mentor and leader in a lot of ways too, as far as like the way she carries herself. And like I call her and ask for advice on like how to handle media and how to handle this and that, and just like kind of emulating her like mental game in these environments. So it's cool. Like there is a lot that we can share in that way, but to reflect on SkiMo, it's been really cool to see the Olympics come into or like our sport join the Olympics, because there's a lot of pushback initially of the sprint and relay disciplines are way different than what a lot of people got into the sport for. And I was part of that. Like I was super disappointed in that decision initially. And then we started the racing and started watching these events. And like, wow, this is like fun to do and fun to watch and fun to train for. Like it's fun to be kind of feel peppy when you run up the stairs, like just in day-to-day life, and like feel strong in the gym and be able to move a lot of weight. I'm like, man, it kind of feels good to train this way too. But anyway, like a big part of that Olympic movement has been, there's just so much more excitement around it in our team. Like there's way bigger youth programs. There's like incredible changes in like the way our federation supports us as athletes and the professionalization there of now we have full-time staff and full-time coaches. When I started 10 years ago, like we were buying our license and then like booking our hotel and trying to like find out where the race is, even on like a World Cup, and like there's some support for World Championship level. But yeah, just to like see what it's done for the sport of now, because of that pointy end, like it has had such a ramification on like, again, youth getting into the sport, like domestic events across the country. And it's just been kind of like cool to be part of that. And like, I also push back on like me kind of being the guy in that way of like, there's so many talented athletes on the team, and a lot of our youth are so strong, and like people are getting more specialized event to event than they used to be, instead of just, you kind of tried everything. Like now we have vert racers and sprinters and long distance racers. And like, yeah, it's just kind of cool to be part of the team at this moment.
So cool. Maybe you could say a few words about also learning through this process of SkiMo, navigating its way through the IOC approval process, because of course, one of the major stories around the World Championships and throughout the 2025 trail season is that trail running is on a similar path. A lot of people expecting 2032 being the year that trail running will make its Olympic debut. Is there anything that we can learn as a sport that you've drawn from the ski mountaineering process?
Yeah, I mean, I think what fans, athletes, and just people that love trail running can expect is that there will be huge growing pains and there will be changes, and that's going to come from specializing in whatever becomes this Olympic format, because it has to be able to be put on and it has to be able to be TV friendly. Like no matter how pure and romantic of a sport that it is, like these things just need to work. And like, yes, it'd be really cool to have drones just flying around in like dense jungle trails, but like there's going to be growing pains at the beginning for sure. People should know that. And there's going to be pushback, and there's going to be athletes like specializing in that as they go for this, like the highest stage in sports, you know? And like, it's going to be really cool to see what people do, like whatever that format becomes and whatever, like kind of the size of the athlete quotas and all that becomes, like, there's going to be athletes doing really cool things. And like what we see with SkiMo is like people have sort of specialized one way or another. Like you go kind of Olympic mode, and that like isolates the athleticism of the sport. Like how fast can you physically like sprint up the hill and maneuver these transitions and ski back down? Like it's like a really like exciting kind of form of the sport in that way. Then there's people that tried or maybe like didn't try in the first place if it wasn't like their style of racing, and then like they still focus on the events that still exist, like the SkiMo's version of Zagama and UTMB and Sears and all, like won't change. There'll just be a handful of athletes like really specializing in these formats, and it's probably going to be really, really cool to watch, cool to see, and like a fun journey for everyone that gives it a shot. Like not just the people that are going to the Olympics, but like, yeah, it's been a really cool journey for our whole team just to like be in the process together. But I'm rambling a bit, but like there's going to be growing pains, and it's also going to be really, really, really cool. And the rest of the sport will continue to exist, and these things will just coexist side by side. And then there'll be crossover as well. Like once those Olympians go back to, doing other stuff.
All right, Anna, I'm going to come back to you in a second, but Cam, I need you to keep rambling about something that I think is important, because I had a conversation with Remy Bonnet in Confranc 2, who's of course a multiple-time world champion ski mountaineer, who said that he was not going to be trying for the Olympics given the individual format and him feeling like it wasn't a proper representation of the sport as he had known it. Can you explain, the tension there that the SkiMo community has dealt with, and what practically does the individual race look like? Because the mixed relay does sound really interesting and really fun, really dynamic. And it's about 30 minutes, whereas the individuals are really, really short.
Totally. Yeah. So just to get the kind of verbiage right, the individual sprint, or like we call it just the sprint that you do solo. So this is another one of the Olympic disciplines. Anna and I will actually also race that, because all mixed relay athletes will race the sprint as well. So that's just doing one climb, one descent as an individual in like heats of 6 through a tournament, essentially. So it's sprint and mixed relay are those Olympic disciplines. The individual is actually one of those more core quintessential events of like, that's the 75 to 90 minute multiple climbs, multiple descents out in the mountains. So essentially that like tension comes from people don't get into this sport to do the sprint and mixed relay events. They get into the sport because they want to backcountry ski and climb up peaks and see beautiful views and ski powder on the way down. And then like a lot of people like to race while they do it, just because it's a really fun way to develop skills and meet people and push yourselves and like challenge yourself in a safer environment. But anyway, that's kind of like the tension and like sort of like black and white there. But then from Remy's perspective too, of like, if he's staying more on the track of this individual, this longer format, and like Switzerland, for example, has a lot of really, really good sprinters and mixed relay racers, and you can only have so many per country. Like, he had a really difficult path into of like, it would have been really cool to see him go for the relay, and I think he would have done amazing. But like, again, just with the quotas being so small, so few nations, like so many good athletes are not going. So like Remy won't be there because he had this different plan. Obviously, like Tove Alexanderson, not part of it. And like Axel Gachet-Molleret, who is a female that runs a 32-minute VK, which I think is similarly or more impressive than Remy's time, like didn't even try for this, or like hardly tried for this as well, because like it's just so competitive and tight. But all that being said, this is, again, the first time it's going to be in the Olympics. And then the talk is pretty confident that 2030 will have this individual format, and we'll just continue to build from there. So that's, I think, another kind of like model for trail running, is like it might start one way and then like build another, but you have to get into the games, have people like it, and like have that successful initial broadcast, because like, as we saw with some new sports in 2024, like people might not like it, and then it's over and done with in one go. So you got to start somewhere.
I can't wait for the watch party that I throw for you guys. But thank you for that explainer, Cam. Really interesting. It sounds like you guys will be 2-time Olympians by the time you make your trail running Olympic debut. Anna, coming back to you, one thing I would love to hear is, once you make the team, what happens? Like, how do you get absorbed into Team USA? If you could just share what the original touch point looked like and what it's been like since.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's been kind of a crazy process, actually. I didn't realize how much came along with making the Olympics. I think, there's a fair amount of paperwork that gets done, because you have to, not only do you qualify, but you also have to get officially selected by the USOPC. And so there's just like a lot going on in the background of them making sure that everything has been done properly and that you are like actually eligible to compete at the Olympics. So there's a waiting period where you might see an athlete's performance, but you are not quite fully actually added to Team USA yet, and you're not fully an Olympian. And so we had to go through that, where you're like, okay, I hope everything goes well, and Cam and I are both like calling each other during this period, like having mild amounts of anxiety about what if something goes wrong and what if we don't actually get to go. And of course it all works out just fine in the end. And then after that, like, it has just been wild. I think as an athlete, mentally, to know that you've gotten the opportunity to compete at the highest stage in the world, but that it isn't quite there yet, and that you still have to keep training and you still have to keep your head together, is kind of a weird process to go through. Like, you just have to keep like the motivation high and figure out like the best strategy for you to physically approach the games feeling good. And then on top of that, I mean, there's also just been like so much media interest in learning about SkiMo, learning about our journey to Milano Cortina. And I have just been like fielding questions from left and right nonstop, basically, about the sport and about people just like wanting to learn about it, which has been super, super cool. I think that's honestly one of my favorite parts so far of this whole process, just getting to be people's introduction into this world of ski mountaineering. And it's also been pretty overwhelming. I think it's hard as an athlete to like focus on all these things at once and tell your story over and over and over again. But ultimately, I know it's all worth it. And I love people's curiosity.
Yeah. I mean, you got to deal with media people like me constantly knocking on the door, but also, smaller media outlets like NBC Sports, Team USA itself was collabing you guys on Instagram. Anyway, it must feel kind of surreal. And, I feel as a very niche trail running podcaster, the ability to talk to 2 Olympians who are in all likelihood doing interviews with the big, institutional media outlets before these games is pretty darn fun for me. Anna, can you also just kind of meditate on the value of your inexperience and maybe ignorance and the novelty of this experience for you? Because on the one hand, it could be seen as a severe disadvantage, but on the other hand, like, you really have nothing to lose. Can you just share a little bit how you've thought about that?
Yeah. I mean, I honestly think that like my lack of experience has been really key in all this working out for us and for me because like there's been such a light energy that's surrounded all of this, because if we failed, or if I failed, like that would have just been the expected outcome. No one would have been surprised. No one would have talked about it. Like it would have just like slipped on by and we could have moved on with our lives. I feel like having a lot of expectation about making the Olympics, or a ton of pressure, makes it way more challenging to actually do. And so I've been able to just like come into this feeling this beginner energy of just excitement around the whole thing. I was able to show up at the Solitude World Cup just like honestly pretty loose, and just excited about taking in that whole experience and getting to be a part of all of it. And just like really excited that I was there, and knowing that no matter what was going to happen, we were going to learn something pretty big. And yeah, I think that like the whole situation would have just felt completely different if I had started doing this a year or 2 years or 5 years before this qualification process, because we would have had really high expectations for ourselves, and we would have probably come into the race having a lot more like hype and talk and all this stuff, people like, yeah, expecting us to have a particular outcome. And so for me, I think it's been really key, and it's made the process super fun, because no one would have expected us to do this. And like I said, if we had failed, it would have just been like, okay, like we move on and we try again for the next Olympic cycle. And that's that.
Yeah. Okay. I would love to hear from both of you about what training looks like right now, because I think it probably is prime time. And Anna, I want to start with you, because my guess is you've been leaning on Cam in a lot of ways to know what you should be doing in these critical final weeks before the games. Can you just bring us into your daily training and mindset preparation for the Olympics?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I feel like it probably sounds kind of weird, but I haven't really changed much. There's nothing crazy going on over here. I'm honestly training pretty similarly to how I would be training if there was no SkiMo season, because training for SkiMo is just like living my best life. Like they're the same thing, essentially. Like in the winters, I just go backcountry skiing a lot. I spend a lot of time in the mountains doing like zone 2, sometimes zone 1 with friends, just hanging out. I spend a lot of time skiing at the resort, just like getting really strong, getting my legs under me. I spend some time running, not a lot, like a handful of times per week, if that. And I think the only like added bits this season have been doing like a bit more intensity on my SkiMo skis, like one kind of hard interval session per week that I'm like kind of bearing myself in. And then also the transition practice, just making sure that I'm keeping all those skills sharp and continuing to improve. But yeah, honestly, it's kind of wild. Like I think my life wouldn't look a whole lot different right now if the Olympics weren't in the picture. I think it's just this process of trying to maintain the status quo and like make sure that I'm showing up at the games just like feeling mentally fresh still, because we've both been racing a ton. I mean, I've been racing since April and on the road traveling almost half of my time since then. And so like, I'm really just savoring some time at home and like trying to maintain the peace and yeah, spend time with my friends and family and just like show up to the games healthy, fit, and like excited about the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, luckily you live in a place that probably few locations could rival in terms of your training availability there in Jackson. Cam, I'd love to hear from you too. You're in Courchevel as we're recording now. I think you've got a World Cup coming up. What does the final block of preparation look like for you?
Yeah, so I'm on a similar track to Anna, but just a couple weeks ahead timing wise. So I was home for about a month after the Solitude World Cup and just used that time to like try to soak up a winter at home in a short time frame essentially. And like a lot of that was just kind of celebrating with like friends and family and coworkers and community, like all around, like, yeah, around CB and Gunnison, and just kind of enjoying that moment with everyone, because it feels like so many people contributed. And it was just like really energizing to feel all that stoke of people that are like way into this all of a sudden. And that combined with just like a lot of like kind of mixing it up. So a little more like skate skiing, a lot of powder skiing on my bigger skis when it did snow, riding the chairlifts and just kind of like getting mentally fresh and like a lot more volume and building some strength in the gym. And then now I'm jumping into the World Cup races. So we have 3 back-to-back World Cups here in January. with mostly the Olympic disciplines, a couple of verticals as well. So I'll race these first two. And then when we get to that third one at the end of February, Anna will be out here and we'll race another relay together. So basically it was a lot of like kind of back to basics, volume and strength at home and just kind of enjoying it. And then now I'm sharpening back up. So I'm not positive that these next three World Cups will go super well, but oh, cool. Shoot. If
we got the gist, I think your connection's a little iffy, but hopefully it'll work out. It's been good to this point. But anyway, coming back to what we talked about earlier, like it does feel like you guys can go into this, with a really competitive mindset, not just I'm really happy to be here. Maybe Anna, while Cam fiddles with his internet connection, can you talk about that, like the competitive mindset, how you guys think about the other countries who are represented and where maybe you stack up?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I think I almost resist the question because I have been trying to not play that game in my head. Like the key to me succeeding is not worrying about those things and just like worrying about showing up to the race feeling good and like having my best day. So to be honest, I have not been like looking in on other athletes training and like trying to figure out where we fit into it or any of that. Like, I think we showed that at Solitude, we can show up and we can just like play the game if we just show up on that day and we're really excited about the experience and we just like lean in, give our all, like show up and be the best teammates for each other. And so I've just been like completely focused on that whole side of things and like completely not worried at all about where that puts us in the race. So I don't know if Cam feels differently. Like he's obviously a bit more of like the numbers guy on the team. Like I'm not really paying attention to any of that. And that's just sort of my style, is to like show up to the race and just know that like, I know how to play the game. I'm confident in my fitness. I've trained as hard as I could. And I'm like mentally in the place that I need to be, which is just relaxed and excited.
Cam, build off this without providing any bulletin board material to your rivals. Maybe you could share like, who is the major competition? Can we realistically compete for a medal here?
Yeah, I mean, this is another thing that like I'm following Anna's lead on, of like we did so well at Solitude by just kind of focusing on what the two of us are doing and racing our race, and then like had no expectations going in, and that allowed us to execute when we were behind and when we were ahead in the highest pressure moment. So like at the end of the day, we're really just focused on what we're doing. But I do at our best, we're for sure racing for a medal. And I like to put that out there, even if it's not something that I'm like visualizing and like planning around, because I just want everyone else to be excited. And like, I know it's a possibility, but there's a lot of really strong countries that weren't at Solitude. So mainly France and Spain didn't enter teams. And then Austria is really good as well. Switzerland will have a different composition than the team that we raced at Solitude. And then we'll lose the home soil. So like there's all kinds of things going against us too. And I think, on our day, we're for sure in there. And then like part of this whole kind of Team USA onboarding process is we've been trained on like how to talk about our chances in terms of like minimizing risk with like sports betting. So we can't like actually say what we think we are on paper, but I think we're going to do a really good job and we're gonna crush it, and it's gonna be awesome. And I'm excited for other people to be excited about it.
Well done. Responsible disclaimer here for the gamblers in the audience. You don't take any of this as investment advice, as they say. Hilarious.
Wow, this is making me feel like I should have paid a little bit more attention during that training course. I hope I haven't said anything that's bad for us.
I'm betting a farm on you guys. Cam, I'd be remiss to close down without flagging for the audience and asking you to comment just on the journey you've been on with your health in recent years, because it really is remarkable what you've had to deal with, and to still, be at the top of your game here, navigating those issues and have this opportunity. Maybe you could remind the audience what the journey has been like for you and what it feels like to be on the other side. Any words of advice for people who might be in the doldrums right now?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So essentially, like, the last time I was on the show was after earning a podium in a World Cup. And that was like a big deal. First time an American man had done that. And like, it felt like a big breakthrough moment. So the next winter I was like, all right, sweet. I'm moving to Europe. I'm going all in on this. I'm going to like see how far I can take it. Tore my ACL meniscus about halfway through the winter. And like at that point, the whole dream felt dead. Like I looked down at my leg, like this leg will never run and jump and ski again. Like it's like a scary injury and it's like a really long road back. And I just like, again, like to bring up my wife, Lynn, like to say she was with me for every step of the way. And like to backtrack a little bit when I was like, oh, like I only cried a little bit after Solitude. It's like the only time I did was when I locked eyes with her and like ran over to hug her. Cause like she knows what it took to get here. And like she saw these moments and like lifted me out of them by being like the ultimate partner, but also being like a wizard and dragon slayer of a physical therapist, which was super helpful. But like spent a year rehabbing that and like long road back, but made it. And like, again, lots of dark days and just, yeah, leaned on her and the people around me. And then essentially was cleared to race the following January, did a vertical race. It went great. And then the next morning tore my shoulder tore my labrum and dislocated my shoulder in a weightlifting accident. And then tried to race a few days later, dislocated again and took a crash and got a bad concussion. And like, again, season was over and was sort of back at ground zero. And that surgery recovery from that actually felt way harder than the ACL, even though it was half the time. Like that was more of a 6-month recovery instead of a 12-month. But to like get to the mountaintop and get knocked all the way back down to like the whole process of trying to schedule doctor's appointments, get a surgery, and like doubt whether I wanted to do this again, doubt whether I could do this again was, yeah, really hard. And so to like be given this second opportunity and then this third opportunity of like to still be here and healthy and to be able to compete and then to be able to like actualize on that potential is just like the greatest gift, like that all these like supporters and everyone that was on my team gave me of like the opportunity to do this, to then like give the gift back of like, look, like because you gave me that love and support, like we accomplished this all together. And it's just like, yeah, truly the experience of a lifetime to have gone through it all. And I guess to say to folks, like, I mean, everyone's going through stuff at different times and just know that, yeah, you never know what can happen if you just keep going.
Amazing. When you're going through hell, keep going. I think that's a Winston Churchill quote, if I'm not mistaken. Well, I feel the teammate trust and camaraderie here. You know, I really have a good feeling about this. I feel like you guys fit together really well. Shout out to Lynn for, not only the connection, but for building Cam back from square one multiple times here in the last couple of years. I can't wait to watch you guys. Couple quick things before we wind down. I would love to hear from both of you about your parents' reaction. Maybe a weird question, but I don't know. Anna, to me, it feels like this might be a fun thing for you to get us started with. Would love to hear just like how friends and family have reacted to this and whether or not you have people who are going to be joining you in Milano Cortina for this amazing, potentially once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah. Gosh, I mean, I think I should just start by saying I think there's probably like 40 people between Cam's family and my family and our friends and USA SkiMo who are all there to watch us, which is incredible. Not to mention more people who I'm sure will just come jump on board being Team USA fans or being curious about SkiMo. So there's going to be a lot of people there, which I'm really looking forward to. I mean, wow, I think like making your parents cry is one of the most gratifying experiences that you can have. And in a good way, obviously, cry out of pride. And that was my parents' reaction. Like I have rarely seen my dad in tears, and there was a lot of emotions like going through him at this point. Both my parents were actually able to come down to the Solitude World Cup, which at one point I was like, oh, that's a little bit much. Like, it's okay. You don't have to come. Like, maybe we'll make it, maybe we won't. But if we make it, like, we'll also be racing at the Olympics. So it's okay. Like, you could come to that. And they both were like, no, like, we're coming. We're going to be there. And I'm so glad that they were, because that felt like the biggest moment in my athletic career. Just, like even bigger maybe than like getting a bronze medal at the Trail World Championships.
Wow.
Like, just, yeah, they were in tears. And I think it was also such a full circle moment for them because they've built our entire lives around skiing. And so to make it in a winter sport, I think just felt like a total moment of like coming home for all of us.
So fun. What about you, Cam? I understand your mom is potentially the America's biggest SkiMo fan. Is that true?
Totally. Yeah. So she was out there watching, and from what I understand, was a little bit high strung and maybe swearing like a sailor throughout the race, which actually color for that too. I guess Lynn had her back turned to the course pretty much the entire time and had our other friend narrating to her what was happening. She was too nervous to watch. But yeah, like similar with Anna, it's just so cool to like see the stoke that people have. And like, I kind of forgot that they play your national anthem when you win one of these. And like, we were standing on the podium, like, cool, we got our little prizes. Let's take our photo. And then like, when they said hats off, I was like, oh shoot, like that's for the US national anthem. And then I got a video of it later from my mom of just the phone like shaking back and forth because she's just bawling her eyes out of like, yeah, I can't believe this is happening. And like, again, kind of same theme of like, it's just so cool to do this because we can share it with so many people of like, so many people contributed to it. And it's like truly a win for everyone and like something that we can like give back as a tangible, like shared victory, which is just, super cool. So excited to keep it going and like for all the excitement in Milan Cortina.
All right. Well, like I said, I'm going to organize a watch party. We gotta formalize and schedule an emergency podcast for immediately after the race. And I need one of those USA SkiMo puffy jackets. I think they're like La Sportiva, but I saw those in your guys' photos. If you guys can secure me a size large, I would be eternally grateful as your number one fan who will be certainly watching during the Olympic Games. Final question for you, and I'll let you go. Obviously, trail running podcast here. You guys are trail runners too. I'd be remiss not to close by asking you to look ahead a little bit further in 2026, what some of your goals are for the running season. Anna, we can start with you.
I've been getting asked this a lot, and I'm really struggling with my answer. I need to take a break. And so my first goal in trail running is to not do it, is to take a break and to rest. I'm already signed up for Broken Arrow, so you can count on me being there. And I'm kind of waiting to see the Golden Trail World Series schedule, but I will likely be a part of that. But yeah, I think just my biggest goal, like not race related, is just to kind of keep following the curiosity and the joy. Like that approach has been really working for me. And is like the biggest takeaway that I have from 2025 is just to follow those things. And so I would say more of that for me in 2026.
Awesome. And that curiosity and joy might first come in the form of rest. You can be curious and joyful with a nice period of decompression too, which is certainly well earned in your case, Anna. Cam, what about you? How are you thinking about the trail running season?
Pretty much the same. Where normally I'd be racing SkiMo through March and April, this year I'm going to do some events just for fun, like some longer stuff, Pyramenta and hopefully Grand Traverse, and just kind of spring ski. Like April and May are my favorite times to be out in the mountains and ski a bunch. So I'm just going to enjoy that without a lot of focus. And then get started with probably Broken Arrow and then, see about this Golden Trail schedule. So it's a lot TBD, but definitely going to really decompress after this and letting myself kind of let go post Olympics and just make sure that I feel excited after this. But just enjoying.
Awesome. Well, I guess to be continued on that front, we'll look forward to seeing you guys on the race course eventually in trail running shoes. But obviously, business to attend to first. Congratulations to you both. I mean, just making the Olympics, of course, is just an insane accomplishment. And, of course, you're not resting on your laurels now. You got big racing coming up, and we're all going to be cheering you guys on. Cam Smith, Anna Gibson, thank you guys so much for coming back on the pod.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.